"Follow me, and I will make you fish for people," said Jesus to Simon and Andrew. They left their fishing nets and followed him. A moment later, they bump into James and John, who also leave their nets and their dad to follow Jesus. They leave it all. They turn a new direction to follow Christ. And that's how they became followers of Christ. This is their conversion story. I want to highlight this to show that there are different ways to come to know Christ. The most familiar conversion story in North American Christianity is the Road to Damascus version. It's based off of St. Paul's experience, who was blinded by the light of Christ while traveling on the road to Damascus. Paul was persecuting Christians, but having seen the light, he converts, changes his ways, even changes his name from Saul to Paul. It's a big, dramatic conversion. We hear about this model of conversion repeated in stories where someone is resistant to Christianity, they hit some sort of spiritual rock bottom, and then suddenly, almost magically, Christ appears to them in some way and their hearts are changed. It's big and dramatic. It certainly happens, and I know people who have experienced Jesus in this way, so I want to affirm that that is wonderful. It doesn't happen to everyone, however, and it's not the only way to come to know Christ. Some have more of a road to Emmaus experience. In that story, the disciples are traveling with Jesus, only they don't realize it at the time. It's only as they sit down and break bread together that Christ becomes apparent to them. They look back and they think to themselves, "Ah, he was with us the whole time." In the same way, some of us have come to gradually grow in our faith. There's no sudden light. It's more like a dimmer switch that gets brighter and brighter. Eventually we realize, I am surrounded by the light of Christ, and I am a follower of Jesus. I know people where it has happened for them like that. And then we have the conversion of Simon, Andrew, James, and John. For them, there's no light at all. They start following Jesus without knowing anything about Jesus. And that's what's most striking to me. They're not debating theology with him. They don't ask what he stands for. I'm not even sure that they did a background check. Do they have any sense of what they're getting into? Who knows? But there is something about this Jesus that they really like, so they go for it. They start with a physical change, and then later learn what it means to be a follower of Jesus. This happens in faith a lot too. For some of us, we start out by doing the mission of Christ. We help the church, we commit to helping the poor, we do what we can to support worship or help people heal or just make the earth a little bit more like heaven. All of this without asking any questions of theology. We're doing the work without being sure what it is we believe. Are you still then a follower of Jesus? Well, with Simon, Andrew, James, and John, we have this notion today that being a believer is all about your beliefs, all about your head and your heart. But it isn't always. You can be completely uncertain about what it is you believe and still choose to follow Christ. You're no less a believer because you're not emotional about it or not certain about it. If having our theology all figured out was a condition to faith, well, I don't think any of us are going to go to heaven. It is part of a healthy faith journey to have parts and times where you question and doubt. That doubt doesn't bother Jesus. Keep walking with him. You're still part of his pack. For me, I grew up hearing the road to Damascus stories, and I was waiting for Christ to appear to me in that way. It never did happen. I would have probably left faith altogether, except that I got hired to be a church organist. I was very surprised by that, and I wasn't sure at the time what it was I believed. I had a lot of doubts. But I started the work of Christ. And well, now here I am. Since then, I've got a lot of other experiences too. Faith has grown and been challenged and dimmed and brightened in me. It changes, as I believe it should. If someone told me that I had to have my faith or my beliefs all figured out before I started this journey with Christ, I probably wouldn't have stepped forward. So if you're someone who goes to church or feels curious about church but hasn't figured it all out what it is you believe, well then, welcome. You belong here as much as the rest of us. You can start doing the work of Christ now and figure out the details later. In my opinion, you too are a follower of Jesus. Amen.